Hey, welcome to Zoom for Lunch this morning. It's February 2021. Isn't that amazing that we're 2 months into the year? Just a few things before we get started, and we're talking about different books. I wanted to share with you what's coming up. So this month, because it's February, and of course normally we have chocolate and all that jazz, because of COVID and all the other things and restrictions and concern about sharing food and getting sick, we have not done that, but we're still doing our blind date with a book. So this book is wrapped up, and you can find out, one thing you can find out about it, is it fiction or nonfiction? And we'll let you know that, and it'll say that, blind date with a book, this happens to be nonfiction. And so you can take it home and see if you want to read it, and if you would fall in love with this book. We have lots of fiction books for adults too. We have science fiction, westerns. We have large print. We have gone through the library and found books that we thought you would like. Now, the other thing we have for juniors, and maybe you like junior fiction also, is the first date. And it says, I've heard from this one girl who said that it was everything she imagined it to be, her book. So they too, the juniors, teenagers, or yourself if you like them, can check out a junior fiction book. And it'll say junior fiction or junior nonfiction here on the back. And you take it home, read it, and see if you like it. And we'll have prizes for those who read. Every time you get a book, you put a book in, you get a chance to win a drawing to go to dinner. So the junior fiction people the teens will get it, and then the adults for blind date with a book will get an opportunity to go to dinner and maybe a movie or something. And we'll draw it in March and let you know who won. So don't forget, blind date with a book. Also, I just want to remind you that the heart of every library or every community is their library. The heart of every community is their library. So don't forget that. Let me show you. Next month in March, we have Sue Evans talking about Have You Seen Louise Velez? Our book club read that and we just loved it. And so I have asked Sue if she would review it since she's part of our group. But she loved it so much, that was exactly the book she wanted to review. So that's March. That'll be coming out on Zoom. So in April, we normally have National Library Week, but because we can't have our big to-do during National Library Week with lunch and special authors because people aren't traveling, we're going to hold off till September on that. However, we're going to have one of our favorite speakers come, which is Tara Schreier, and she's the librarian from the community college here, and she's going to speak on A Time for Mercy by John Grisham. She just finished the book and she said she loved it and she wanted to share that. She was really excited. So that recording will be done in April. Okay? I don't have May decided yet. That's just because I haven't. If you have grandkids or nieces or nephews or children, I just want to let you know about something we just started for kids under the age of, say, 6 or kindergarten. It's 1,000 books before kindergarten, and Judy Kleinsort, our children's librarian, has set up an incentive program for parents to begin reading to their children 1,000 books before kindergarten. So at, say, 100 books, you get an incentive of 200 and 300, all the way up to 1,000. Then you get a certificate. So, and there are things to do along the way with this. Just go on our website and find Beanstack and go on and sign up as a parent. You need a library card, of course. And then sign your children up underneath it. So if you have more than one children under the age of, say, kindergarten, then you can sign them up. That'll be a fun thing to do with your kids. That's brand new, started last month. Our book club, again, is meeting on the first Monday. We're currently reading The Black Swan of Paris, if you want to join us. Our science fiction club meets the first Sunday of the month. Our poetry group moved to the third Thursday of the month at 2 p.m. And many people write poetry. Every once in a while I get a chance to. But we have some really wonderful writers. So come and join us. Or just come and listen. If you are going somewhere, or say can't get a book in print, you can often get it on Sunflower Library. All you have to do is a library card and we can help you set it up. The same with Hoopla. If sometimes Hoopla will have a different set of books than Sunflower E-Library, or it might be an audio versus print or PDF form. And then don't forget, if you want to send a card to someone because you're concerned about them or just saying hello and you've just been kind of COVID locked down, come in and get a note card and send some cards out to your friends and let them know that you care about them, especially during February. And don't forget that on Facebook, we'll tell you when we have a snowstorm or something's coming up and we're closed. We'll also put our Zoom on Facebook. We'll put the Zoom program today on our Facebook page, our website, which is colbylibrary.com, and we can send you a link also if you want one. So let me get started on some things about the love stories that we have that you might enjoy during February. Because we're doing Blind Date with a Book and First Date, I thought it would be fun to tell you about some fun love stories that I have read recently. Now, I have to confess, for many years, I didn't read a romance novel at all. I was like, no, nonfiction or historical fiction or biographies or nonfiction, just be serious. And, but this year, with COVID and things, I just said, I need to find something lighter to read, something more enjoyable. So the first one I want to tell you about was a Christmas one, but actually I found it really didn't have anything to do with Christmas for the most part. It's by Debbie McCumber and it's called Jingle All the Way. And the reason I love this book is because Debbie McCumber takes her experience of going down the river on the Amazon and writes about it in the book. So what happens is Everly Lancaster, she works at this big real estate firm, and it's an online specialty firm that is very famous and very well-to-do, and she is a workaholic. And she hasn't not worked for many, many, many months, and she hasn't taken a vacation. So she goes to this conference, and she puts her slideshow on to wow the people with their business acumen, and the slideshow is wrong. And her presentation that she worked on was totally a bust. And she was so upset. She went to her new assistant and basically just told her she was done and that she was fired. And then she told her co-owner of the business, of the real estate business, that this assistant, who happened to be his niece, was fired. And they said, well, we'll talk about it in the morning. So then Everly Lancaster shows up to work the next morning, and her co-owner of the real estate business says, you're just overwrought. You need a vacation, and tells the assistant to get her a vacation and get her on a cruise, someplace warm, because it was the middle of winter in December, and all of a sudden, Everly has a ticket to go to the country where the Amazon River is. And she has her suit, her swimsuit, and her sunscreen, and her hat, and her wonderful clothes that are just going to be wonderful to sit on the beaches and just enjoy. She trusts the assistant fully, and she is just so ready to go and so ready for this vacation. But when she arrives, she gets her ticket, and then she finds that she's on another airplane to actually go onto a smaller cruise down the Amazon. However, she never checks it out, and she gets on board and she finds out what kind of cruise it is, and she tells the people, I'm not ready for this. And they said, well, we're already to sail, and so you're here and you get to enjoy it. This book was so fun, and you learn so much about what it's like going down the Amazon and what where she went and all about the various animals on the river and wildlife and the people who live in the jungles of the Amazon. You find out about people on ships and how they run. And it was more than just a love story. And you will enjoy it. So I recommend this. Even though it's a Christmas book, take away the jingle all the way and just enjoy Debbie McCumber's book on the Amazon. All right. This one, Susan Elizabeth Phillips wrote, Dance Away With Me. I just wrote a link on this, and this happens to be large print. But the funny thing about this book is about a boy who starts out at 10 years old. And I don't know if you know what tagging is, but it's like spray painting, what I would call graffiti, or, making something really ugly and defaming it. Well, he makes these beautiful pictures on the MTA, like the trains or on a building or something, and he spray paints them, and he does all this beautiful spray paint, and then he tags it with his initials, his real initials. And he does it because his father's really rich. And he is just so angry with his father because his father not only is abusive with him verbally, but physically. So Ian North, which is the man, then grows up and goes to the small mountains of Tennessee. There's another woman who happens to be Tess Harder's song, and she is a nurse. And she's living in the small mountains also. She just moved there. She lives in this very, very basic cabin. Not very much there. She doesn't care. She's 2 years into being a widow. Her husband died of pneumonia, and she should have been one of the ones who knew that he had pneumonia because she's a nurse. Unfortunately, she wasn't a respiratory nurse, so she really didn't get that he was that sick, and they didn't figure it out before he died. So 2 years later, she's still running away from that. So she goes to Runaway Mountain and lives in the cabin. And one day she's got her music blaring outside, and she's just doing really strange things because she doesn't know what else to do. It's raining outside, her music is on, and she's dancing in the rain. And Ian North comes and turns her music off and says, I am done with this. I am done with you. You made noise at 2 o'clock in the morning and all night and into the morning and after dinner. You are done. And she's like, well, who in the heck do you think you are? So they have words. And then Ian North's girlfriend comes and says, what are you doing? Leave this woman alone. But the woman is a beautiful young woman. She happens to be pregnant, not with Ian's child, but because of circumstances, Ian is taking her in. And Ian and Tess and this other woman happen to actually patch their relationship up and become friends. Something tragic happens, and then Ian and Tess have to work through it. It's a really good book. It makes you think about what's really happening in the mountains of Tennessee and what people are dealing with. And just issues that you and I would not think about, especially when it comes to being a midwife and a maternity nurse in the mountains of Tennessee. I found it very, very interesting and very good. Robin Carr, Another Country Guest House, is this book. And so Robin has just inherited by a good friend of hers a 5-year-old boy named Noah. He happens to wear braces on his legs and has some problems. And his mom has just died. And so there were three friends that lived and were in college together, and they always stuck together. And when the woman Dot was getting sick, Noah's mom, she went to her friends and said, would you please take care of my son if something happens to me, because I am the only person in his life. And so they said yes. And so Hannah ends up with this child. So one day at work, she goes to a quote unquote conference in the mountains of Colorado. And she has a terrible conference. And the people there at the conference in this small place in the mountains are just unreal. And so she leaves. She goes back home and decides that she doesn't ever want to do that again. In fact, she's so done, she's going to quit her job. She's going to go find something else to do. She has enough severance pay or back pay and money from her friend that she and Noah are going back to Colorado in the mountains, and they're going to rent the place where she stayed with friends. She found out that it was a small rental place. There was a cabin on the side that she could stay in, and that she could stay in the guest house. And so she rents that for about a month to figure out what she's going to do, she and Noah. And there she finds a relationship with someone who owns the place, and Noah is a big part of it, and Hannah's a big part of it. The other friends are a big part of it, and it's just a wonderful, loving, mature book about relationships. It's quite amazing. I love it. I know a number of you know a lot about Susan Mallory. This one's called Sisters by Choice. And she has quite a series about sisters. And this one is about Sophie Lane, and she returns to the Blackberry Island, and how relationships are just up in arms. And Sophie has a business, and it ends up having a fire. And so her friend who lives on Blackberry Island still, and her family who's been from there, her mom, who she's kind of estranged from, she decides that since her company was experienced a fire, that this was a time that she could actually either move the company or just take a break. So she goes to Blackberry Island to get her head wrapped around what's happening. And while she's there, she decides that there's a big enough warehouse complex that she can actually move her whole corporation there. She asked people in her corporation if they want to move. Some of them did, some of them did not. She finds a guy who is an expert, that has worked in shipping and arranging things throughout the United States and internationally. And he comes and helps her set her business up there in Blackberry. And it's just all about relationships and friends and how they help each other through difficult times. Once again, a really good book. A brand new book we just got, and I know you guys love Nancy, our librarian who does all of the cataloging and library loan and purchasing things. She just read this book and said it was really an excellent book. She loved it. It's called Love Lettering. And what it's about is this woman does calligraphy on cards. She hand writes things for people, invitations for weddings or other things. And she especially does weddings and their invitations, and hand does them. And as she does them, she considers the people and what's going on. And she often can tell when a couple is going to make it or not. And it's all about that story of how she comes to understand whether and sense whether a couple is going to make it or not. Doesn't mean she doesn't do their calligraphy and their work, but it's all about her life and how she senses what is good in a relationship. And you will enjoy that. It's called Love Lettering. It's brand new, as you can tell, and it'll be out next week. Another new one we just got was a Debbie McCumber, A Walk Along the Beach. I haven't read it yet. A brand new one that Nancy is just cataloging is called A Perfect Amish Romance. It'll probably be out next week, just in time for February. Thanks for Valentine's Day. A Perfect Amish Romance. A lot of Shelley Shepherd Gray Amish books have some kind of romance in them, and you'll enjoy them. Another one that we just got, and it's in the large print, it's by Tracy Peterson, The Way of Love. And it's part of the Willamette Brides, it's book 2. And you will enjoy that one. I haven't read this one yet, it's brand new, it just came out. And then a Kansas Notable book by Judith Miller, A Perfect Silhouette. And I haven't read this one either. I'm not going to tell you about them because I want to read them. I haven't even read the forwards on them. So those are fun books. If you're tired of me talking about romance, let me give you a few that aren't about romance. So Karen Kingsbury wrote a book, Someone Like Me, or Someone Like You. I keep saying someone like me, Someone Like You. And it's about a family who, some doctors, who early in their life have a child in vitro fertilization, and then how their children grow up, and one of them finds out about it. And then the person dies, and then someone else gets their heart, and it's all about what do you tell people when somebody dies and they get a new heart? And how does that affect your family? It's really a very beautiful book. So now that you're sick of all these other gushy books, let me tell you about this book. It's called Fundamentals, 10 Keys to Reality. And you might want to pick that up if you love nonfiction. Brand new. Another book is The Mutant Project. This is about stem cells and DNA and genetics, and how the search for DNA and cutting off little parts of your DNA and healing and making babies and choosing things about it. I started it and it's quite interesting. I haven't finished it yet, but I will put it out for you to read. It gets really technical in some areas, but really enjoyable in others. And a third one is Until the End of Time, Mind, Matter, Our Search for Meaning and Evolving Universe. And so you might enjoy something like that. Sometimes I don't read through a whole book like this. I skim it and see parts of it that I want to listen to or consider. Like this one has brains and belief, language and story, information and vitality, the language of time, the lure of eternity, instinct and creativity, duration and impermanence, the twilight of time, the nobility of being. So these are some topics in that, by chapter that you can look through and kind of skim through and read and pick up something new. So those are the ones I want to really tell you about. We still have you seen Louise Velez that you can read before it's reviewed, and then also A Time for Mercy by John Grisham. We have those on the shelf, okay? Can't think of anything else to tell you except for come get a book, Blind Date with a Book, or if you want junior fiction, First Date, and enjoy the month of February. Send a letter, send a card, enjoy your friends, and most of all, enjoy a new book and a new author. Happy Valentine's Day.